I wrote a song. Everything was based on a song, actually. Yeah, my guitar's in the shop, or else I'd sing it for you, but...
You know, the genesis of it was really more about a rock and roll cop. You know, someone who was charming, but kind of a screw-up, but, you know, who generally succeeds.
It was always, in my mind, a comedy. You know, like you're gonna make a film about a gambler or a drunk or, you know what I mean, a drug addict or whatever. And, you know, who had a vice, this vice, that vice. And then you think, well, what about a guy who has every vice? Totally off the hook. A dear friend of mine wrote the script for Color Purple. To kill time, when we would work on certain projects, right, we would just come up with these goofy ideas and these goofy scenes and these crazy kind of vignettes. And then somehow it all kind of rolled up together with the gambling fixation and the thing of the baseball.
Congratulations, asshole. Now you own 30,000. Now what are you gonna do?
I want to go double or nothing on the next game.
Double or nothing? Come on, what are you out of your mind or what?
Good evening. A Manhattan horror story came to light today. The victim, a young nun. Her assailants still at large.
The basic thing of Bad Lieutenant was the event where these two nuns were raped in Spanish Harlem. And it was something that, you know, obviously a major scandal, you know, kind of a whole deal with it. And, you know, it's one of those kind of events that just, you're never gonna forget.
It was labeled as the most heinous crime in New York history by Mayor Koch. Two credents broke into a convent, and there was a nun that was left alone there.
The two thugs apparently used the fire escape of the building next door to reach the roof of the convent.
And upon hearing noise, she went upstairs. They beat her, raped and sodomized her. They used a broom to stick into her vagina.
I mean, the city was up in arms, man. You know what I mean? He was up in the neighborhood. It was like on, I don't know, 110th Street.
Now, this case was so big, it was out of the press until the following Wednesday. Happened on a Saturday. It was the front page of every paper on Wednesday. I mean, this is unheard of, where you could keep a case like this out of the press.
There were rumors out on these streets that there were contracts out on the alleged rapist of the nun. It was just a small indication of the anger felt in this community.
When we broke the case, we got awards from the governors, from the mayors. We were applauded in every restaurant we'd walk into, Tommy and I, and it was a great case.
And this film is not about him, per se, although he was the guy who actually caught the guys who raped the nuns. But anyway, he ended up in the movies.
They took the fucking chalice. The host was still in there.
What the host?
What the fuck you think? What do you think, they're gonna eat the host?
Years after it, Abel then made contact with me, and he said he wanted to do a story on this thing. So I read the script, and he says, this ain't the story. I mean, this guy, he's a heroin user, masturbator, thief, everything that I was not, and he now puts himself into that.
He not only gave us time, but he gave us a lot of background. He gave us a lot of Bo Dietl, and you know, that's priceless.
And everyone says to me, Bo, how could you lend yourself to that when you had such a great case? I said, that really has nothing to do with it. And anybody that understands it, they realize that one had nothing to do with the other. I think what Abel wanted was the worst crime for this broken down Valise cop, drug dealing, gambling, rapist, everything that he was, to put him into this situation of getting involved with one of the heinous crimes. And that's exactly the only connection there whatsoever was that.
We had this premise of this horrific crime, the rape of the nun. Abel somehow combined that with this idea that had been running through his head about this bad cop.
When I first read the script, I said to myself, wow, it's far from the story, but you know what? The creativity of Abel and what he does behind the camera is pretty remarkable.
It did bring a lot of authenticity to the story. It filled in a lot of the background of this character, and it sort of moved the story along. You know, it was the thread.
Doris, it takes just a second. Oh, just on time. That's some very, very fine brown shit for you.
Zoe, we hadn't worked with since Miss 45. And it's really a sad story with her because this woman was, very, very brilliant. You know what I mean? It's obvious in the stuff she did for us. Like I say, it's a real tragedy because, when I met her, she was going on a scholarship to Columbia University at 17. You know what I mean? A really brilliant, brilliant chick.
She was beautiful. I mean, physically, man, she was just exquisite. Very talented, very sharp. I'm sorry she's not around.
You make a movie like Miss 45, it's like Bad Lieutenant. If you don't have the lead, you don't have the front player. I mean, the whole film is on her. So the minute I saw her, I knew what she had.
I'm with my punk rock girlfriend, Cinnamon, and we go to see this movie called Ms. 45. And there is this bizarre-looking woman in the lead role being raped in an alleyway by this guy in a plastic mask who, as it turns out, was Abel. So that was my first experience with Zoe in the lead role of Ms. 45. My girlfriend on the way out of the theater said, "I'd like to do that to you."
Just totally advanced for her age. But then she went to Europe and hooked up with these guys and she got strung out, like at a really young age. But, the kind of person who was, the idea of heroin as like some, elixir of life. But in the end, it killed her, like at a young age.
She also had, with Abel, a side of Abel, parallel to Abel, vision for this Bad Lieutenant, this story, this script.
We had a falling out, unfortunately, from since the end of Miss 45 until we got back together, for the Bad Lieutenant.
At that time, writing a screenplay just wasn't something that Abel could sit down and do in its entirety. And so Zoe was integral in putting this down on paper.
We wrote the script in about 2 weeks. She was the writer. But, she wrote it in my house.
I get the script for Bad Lieutenant, and it's a real shorty. The scripts are never long on Abel Ferrara films, okay?
The version with the type that big was 65 pages.
This script came in at, I think, 68 pages.
The version with the type that big was 80 pages.
So if you figure a minute a page, you have a 1 hour and 8 minute movie. Well, that just is not going to be long enough. But I'm reading this thing, and it's like, what the fuck is this shit?
The Bad Lieutenant script is just like the movie. It's like lifting up a rock and looking at all the scunge and bugs underneath. It's like exposing the world in a way that you really don't want to look at it. And that's how it was written. That's the end product.
My initial reaction was less than excited because whatever was on the page, I thought, well, this is all right, this is okay, but it didn't scream like this is a great script.
As a script supervisor, Abel didn't stick to a script. Abel used a script as a way to get money to make a movie, and then the script was kind of, we called it the daily news. It changed every day. It changed in the middle of scenes.
It left a lot of room for improvisation, but the ideas were pretty distilled. They were there.
Well, the idea of wanting 90 pages of type that big is ridiculous. First of all, Zoe could write 150 pages.
Vampires are lucky. They can feed on others. We gotta eat away at ourselves.
I mean, it just came down to what it came down to, you know what I mean? Because the thing is basically a character study, so, I mean, it wasn't a police film per se. But at the same time, there's a certain reality to it that, you want to keep.
We made that for very little money. We knew from the get-go that it was going to be an NC-17 movie. So this is a horror of distribution, especially back then.
That was the plan from the very beginning. I mean, Abel said, we are going to have an NC-17 film. And I went, wow.
Abe was offered X amount of money. I think it was 3 times the money to be contracted through an R, and we took the latter. And I fully supported him because, to tell you the truth, I think the no holds barred approach is what really makes Bad Lieutenant so vibrant.
Chris Walken was going to play the part. He worked in California. His take was much more comedic. I mean, we were close to a start date, right? And then he says, well, I can't give you the performance that you're going to want. I know exactly what you need, and I can't do it, right? And he gets up and he splits.
Chris is too elegant for the part, I think. Harvey's not elegant, and he's a real street cat. You know, he just exudes that. You know, and he's perfect casting.
Hey, listen to me. I'm the boss, not Aunt Wendy. When it's your turn to use the bathroom, you tell Aunt Wendy to get the fuck out of the bathroom.
I have to say that I didn't think that anybody could pull it off. I just didn't think that. I thought that the movie itself was, I mean, how could you be so bleak? And this was Harvey's, I mean, it was unbelievable. He did it.
They sent the script to him, and he read it, and he threw it in the garbage, I think, after 10 pages. You know,
We'll see what happens. Michael, on the inside of that door. Hey, let me have some shots on the eye level.
That's my ass. Dodger's a smoker, huh?
Yeah, smoker, but what about tomorrow?
Victor Argo read it. Victor got his hands on it and read it and said, you know, Harvey, this really is kind of interesting.
But Victor Argo, who may rest in peace, really, you know, great actor, great friend of Harvey's, kind of came to the rescue.
He saw something in it that wasn't that apparent.
Harvey stepped up to the plate. At the time, he was going through a lot of, you know, some serious life situations.
You fucking stand there and you want me to do every fucking thing? Where were you? Where the fuck were you? Where were you?
Harvey, in his own special way, directed all of his venom and resentment because of his personal problems. He directed it directly into the role.
When I saw him reach into himself and encouraged by Abel to go deeper and deeper into, you know, putting his guts in the Cuisinart, it was pretty amazing to photograph it.